Hailing frequencies open, and welcome to Star Trek Discoverage, the live podcast that boldly goes into excruciating detail about this week's episode of Star Trek Strange New Worlds. I'm your host, Aaron Coker, aka Caliban, and I too love grapplers. But what? No decon chamber jokes? Joining me on the show as usual is my co-host. She's also the co-host of the Generations Geek podcast, a more or less family-friendly celebration of geekdom. It's Ella Pearson. Ella, welcome back to Discoverage.
Thank you.
It is great to have you back here on this most auspicious day in Star Trek. 2 episodes in 1 week? What have we done to deserve this? I don't know, but after episode 7 was surprise dropped at Comic-Con, of course, we've got the new episode 8 tonight, and we're talking about both of them. We'll get to that in just a little bit. I wanted to talk about some of the news from Comic-Con. You didn't get to go to Comic-Con, did you?
No, not this year.
Okay. I did not either, but I've been kind of, such as Comic-Con is these days, you know, with a lot of the companies not going to Comic-Con. Star Trek and Paramount was there, and they had some announcements to make about some pretty exciting things. It was announced that Star Trek Lower Decks will drop on September 7th or excuse me, did I have that right? I'm the one doing the news here. It's the first week of September coming up, season 4 of Lower Decks, and also that it would be premiering or appearing on the big screen as well. And from the article that I read, it was a panel where John Van Citters was making some of these announcements. There wasn't a lot of details, but they said that the first 2 episodes would be on in theaters in some capacity.
Of Lower Decks?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I don't know if this is going to be, and it's all for the Star Trek Day celebration on the 8th in September. So that is kind of exciting. Again, I don't know if this will be a fandom event or if it'll only be in select cities or select locations, but look for more information about that as we get closer to that. Also, I don't know if you saw about a week ago, I think, or maybe even closer to now, they made an announcement about the celebration of the animated series, the 50th anniversary. And there are some animated shorts that look like they'll be possibly part of some longer content featuring non-animated series characters like Will Riker, Saru, and Quark, featuring the actual voice actors, appearing in some kind of shorts or some kind of content that is going to be released as well in September.
That's cool.
Yeah. And of course, if you look online, you can see they're kind of done in that very basic kind of Funimation style, a style that if the Funimation people knew that their cartoons would have lasted this long, they probably would have drawn them a little better. But
I like it.
It is endearing nonetheless. Yeah. And at that same panel, Van Citters had a few comments to make about the future of Star Trek Prodigy, which I should mention, Volume 2 of Season 1 of Star Trek Prodigy will be available on Blu-ray in late September of this year, Blu-ray and DVD. And as we said on a previous show, you can do what you like with your money. Nobody's telling you to do anything, but it's possible that selling a whole lot of these Blu-rays in, I don't know, a month or 2 here might send a message to the people at Paramount that people want more Prodigy. So I'm just saying, you buys your money, who knows what you say with it. But he did mention that, he vowed, and a vow from John Van Citters, we know this is a real thing, he vowed that we would see Star Trek again. He said, quote, "I don't think we can have a panel celebrating Star Trek animation without addressing the 800-pound rock talk in the room." Okay, he's not a writer. "We all know that Prodigy is not currently available on Paramount Plus. It's not the end of the story for Prodigy. Season 2 is still in production. The creative team is working hard to finish what is a great storyline, and we're working to find Prodigy a new home." So nothing definite there, but he does seem committed, and at least the creative people seem committed to bringing us Star Trek Prodigy Season 2.
That's sweet. I like that guy.
If you had to put any money down, would you put a lot of money down or a little money down or no money down?
I would put a medium to large. I mean,
Medium
the fact
money
that
down.
they're medium, the fact that they're finishing the second season seems to me that they feel like they can sell it.
Yeah.
And I trust them more than I trust myself to guess, because we're dealing with streaming is changing very fast.
Yeah.
And
but it's not going anywhere. What's changing is the employment of human beings in its production.
Exactly.
But streaming itself isn't going anywhere. In the old days, they would, you write scripts, or at least you write ideas and treatments, way ahead of time. And then if you get the call, oh, we're done. Okay, throw all these scripts away, because we all know that the word isn't worth anything. But it's like the sets, like. When they deconstruct, or when they burn or destroy the sets and get rid of all the costumes and auction all the props off, then the thing's really dead. And in this day and age, especially with a show that literally there's computer assets, but there is nothing physical. It's kind of like, why don't we just continue to finish it, since we're this big corporation, and one hand can go, no, we're not doing it, and the other hand's like still working a mouse and putting the smile on Rock Talk. And so, I think it makes sense to finish it. And I really do hope that having something finished and having something concrete, especially when it's kind of a unintended happy consequence of the strike, where they need content, we could possibly see this thing come out. I think it'd be a real shame if it didn't. So who knows? And who knows, like, the whole deal with, like, Paramount and Nickelodeon, and I don't even know who really owns it. So I don't know. We'll see what happens for the future, but I'm looking forward to possibly seeing it.
Me too. I feel like the show, I feel like, was pretty successful. I would think that they would have no trouble selling it off. I have no idea how that really works in television, but when you're talking about streaming it randomly, something the other day when I said my friend was thinking about watching the Lower Decks crossover with me, because I told her it was going to be super fun, and she was like, "When is it on?" And I was like, "On? It's streaming." And it was like, I was so confused by her question.
Okay, Grandma,
like,
let's get you to bed.
Yeah, I know. Right. I was like, "When is it on?"
Yeah,
it's on my TV right now.
Yeah,
in my living room.
I would probably ask that too if you just introduced a show to me I didn't know. Oh, when's it on? But hopefully it will be on in the future soon. Let's get right into it, because we have a lot to talk about. We're here to talk about the 7th and 8th episodes of the second season of Star Trek Strange New Worlds, episodes entitled Those Old Scientists and Under the Cloak of War. We're going to talk all about them, but first, as always, a warning: we are setting a course for the spoiler zone, listeners, so if you haven't seen the episodes, spoilers are incoming. The official synopsis for Those Old Scientists is: an accident while investigating a time portal sends Ensigns Beckett Mariner and Bradward Boimler through time from the 24th century, and Captain Pike and his crew must get them back where they belong before they can alter the timeline. The episode was written by Catherine Lynn and Bill Wolkoff and directed by Jonathan Frakes. And I don't know how it works with the animation, if he's like, yeah, that looks good, do that. If you can direct the animated parts, perhaps the voice performances. There's, of course, 2 different time periods in this show. Stardate 2291.6, which is the calendar year 2259, and 58460.1, calendar year 2381. A little bit of trivia for this. Of course, this episode came out as a surprise at San Diego Comic-Con, and then, of course, immediately was released, in the afternoon on Paramount and on Crave outside of America. The title, of course, comes from a reference from No Small Parts, the 10th episode of the first season of Star Trek Lower Decks. I believe it was Commander Ransom referring to the TOS era as the Those Old Scientists era. Mm-hmm. And, there's nothing we can do. That's canon now, but here's a couple suggestions for what TOS could stand for. What about Tholians, Organians, and Sargon? How about that? Those are all TOS references, right? How about Thanks, Old Sailors?
Thanks, Old Sailors?
No? Okay. What about Trouble, Outpost style? Right, they're always showing up at an outpost. Something's going wrong. Too obviously sexy? Could be a problem.
Sure.
Or those obscure sexists.
Lots of miniskirts and shirts ripping.
Sure, yeah. There's our Sulu. There you go. How about them ostentatious speeches? I miss them.
That one's actually really good.
And 300 obstetrician settlements. Don't explain that one. That one doesn't matter. There's a lot of firsts in this episode. This is the first Star Trek episode to open with a log entry from the perspective of a main character of a different series, which I thought was kind of interesting. It is the second episode, actually, of Star Trek to feature both animation and live action together in the same episode. Can you guess what the first one was?
Live action and animation in one episode?
Animation and live action together in one episode, not including any animation effects or something that they did for a spaceship or a nebula or something like that. A cartoon.
I have no idea.
It's kind of obscure, but it's fairly recent. It was the Star Trek short trek, The Trouble with Edward. The Tribble cereal commercial.
I was like, what?
Yes.
TOS episode. Forget what Deep Space Nine episode am I forgetting?
Like, when did they Roger Rabbit? Oh yeah, that
I know.
weird
I was
commercial.
like, excuse me?
Yeah. It's the first time that a voice actor whose characters originated in animated form portrayed their characters in live action. So yeah, until we get I don't know. Now I'm trying to who could we get? Giant Spock maybe from the original series animated episode could come back, and of course the four main voice actors of the four main characters of Lower Decks all appear in this episode. Let's get right into it. What did you think about those old scientists?
I loved it.
Yeah,
I think we knew we could have forecasted that I was going to love the episode. I thought it was really good. I think Strange New Worlds does these like goofy TOS style episodes where they're not taking themselves too seriously very well. There were parts that I felt like maybe something about the editing, or maybe it was just that they're like in the room with people that aren't used to being in the room with something, felt a little bit like there was a little bit of a jilt or something.
Yeah.
But overall, I thought it was amazing. I'm so happy that it was so much fun. And I saw Oppenheimer, and Jack Quaid is in Oppenheimer.
Yeah.
And I kept making jokes because anybody who's seen Oppenheimer might know, he's one of the scientists who works on the bomb, but
he plays Richard Feynman, yeah.
They gave him these bongos.
Yeah, he's playing the
and
bongos.
They keep cutting to Jack Quaid with the bongos, and I was like, who was like, yeah, give this Nepo baby Star Trek kid the bongos.
I bet if
you play the bongos.
I bet if you talk to Jack Quaid, he'd be like, I did not know they were going to use all those takes of me playing the bongos.
I
didn't have a lot of lines. Bongos. I was just playing the bongos, and suddenly I'm in the film playing the bongos.
It's like Christmas time, and he's hitting like the Dragnet theme on the bongos at Los Alamos.
Yeah.
So it was lovely to see him in a role where he has more face time and screen time. In Star Trek. Very fun.
I wonder what they.
I saw, just for the record, of course I saw Barbie.
Oh, okay.
I didn't just see Oppenheimer.
I've seen Oppenheimer. I have not seen Barbie yet, but I'm going to see that probably this weekend. When I think about this episode, I wonder like, obviously they knew they had to like nail it, but like, why does this episode exist? Why would they think, I know, we'll cross the cartoon one over with the old timey one, and bringing it together really worked in a way that you want something like this to happen. Like if you're going to have, I'm reminded kind of Relics in a weird way. It's like a reverse Relics where Scotty comes to TNG from TOS, and it's kind of like continuing his character a little, but it's seeing like what happens like when you take these two eras and kind of like abut them, and what does like Picard and his crew, or Geordi, I guess, is the kind of focus in that episode. What is he learning from Scotty, and what is Scotty taking from them to go, you know what, I'm not an old relic. I'm gonna go out and do stuff. And I thought that was really what was really satisfying for me about this episode, is that you think, okay, so obviously Boimler's going to come back and Mariner's going to come back, and they're going to freak out over like the nostalgia of this, and then also going to be like, oh, I can't talk about Q, and there's going to be like these things that they can't say. But like taking this show, which has sort of slowly charted these storylines that we've been talking about week after week, and then having this X Factor kind of come in, and like the way that, especially in the first half of the episode, when Boimler keeps talking to people and he keeps going, oh, should that be like that? And they're like, what are you talking about? And after he leaves, they're like, wait a minute, should that be like that? Like he was kind of like helping push he was shining new light on their stories that could really only come from an outside character. And it reminded me of like what happens in a normal episode of Star Trek when a guest character comes on, like old timey Star Trek, those old scientists, like him being in the elevator with Chapel, and he's like, "I gotta talk to you about Spock." Like he can't smile that much. It's really important. There's some whales. I don't want to get into it, and it kind of answers our sad sack Chapel question because
Yeah.
almost immediately she's like, yeah, you're right. Like we learned that she doesn't have any faith in their relationship. It's not that she doesn't love him, but she's like, he's too good for me. Like I was never going to be a long term thing. And almost immediately she crumbles, and you're like, oh, that I'm learning things about Chapel. Thanks, Boimler. Having setting up the thing before, which we've talked about on Lower Decks, where it's like we want to treat the Orions like like they're not all pirates, but it's too fun to like mind jokes out of us calling them pirates all the time. But having that be central to the episode, where at the beginning we have that little thing with Tendi, and then later he's like, "No, I'm back here, and I to save Tendi's life in the future, I literally have to convince like these people like no, they're not all pirates."
Yeah, it's not just about being like, oh, actually, like in the future, everything's fine. Like, trust them a little bit. That would be good. It's
Yeah,
about like literally, Tendi will die if you fire on the ship.
yeah, but it's also the right
Yeah.
thing to do. And so it's just like I thought that that
Mhm.
was like really great the way that they took their two eras and kind of put them together. And also you get, there's just like a truckload of references and Easter eggs and things like that. And that was, that was good too. But yeah, I was really really pleased by it. Um there's a lot of specific things that I could say. We're not done. I thought the planet that they were on, so I was thinking like, how are they going to do this? Obviously, we saw the preview shots, where we saw them in costume and like in real life. And I liked how they just said, no, don't worry about it. They're cartoons. They come here. Don't explain it. But when they were on the planet and it's all snowy, it reminded me, I was like, oh, they're on Mount Paramount. It reminded
Oh
me
my
of
god,
this.
that's so funny.
Which didn't they have like wasn't there like an
Yes,
animated
yes.
character and then there was like a real life character? So I was like, oh, are they going to do Mount
And
Paramount?
they ran
Is,
that commercial.
is Sylvester
Baby, they
Stallone going to
ran
show
that
up?
commercial over and over.
Is the guy from Reno 911 going to be here? But they got through that right away and just got into it, and I thought that it was really interesting. Um, I had a couple questions though. There's things that you want to focus on, like having Spock be just weirdly smiling. I'm experimenting with emotions. Um, the him flipping out over that I thought was really great because, how do you do the whole "you never meet your heroes" thing? And you don't want Spock's not going to fart or burp or something like that. He's still going to be Spock, but he's like, this guy's not acting the way that I thought. But when he hears Lon Noonien sing, that doesn't. We don't have time to focus on that. Maybe he's not going to say anything about that because he knows about Khan.
That's a great. I wonder if that's
Or
gonna
maybe in the future there's
make it out of the cutting room
that's
floor.
like Johnson or something like that. It's just like, oh yeah,
Maybe.
obviously there was one guy who kind of ruined that name for everybody, but um,
Maybe. Or maybe I wonder if they did have a scene about it and it got cut. Because that makes so much sense for him to be like, your name's what? And what year is it?
yeah,
Um,
is that a problem?
two things.
It's fine. How
What
do you
you were
feel
saying
about
before
Moby
about
Dick?
them,
Sorry, go
the
ahead.
about the outside characters like pushing the characters like that we know into revealing like more about themselves. I was
Yeah,
thinking like while I was watching it, I was like, it's so when you're watching the cartoon and you're watching Mariner or like anyone but Mariner be like super unprofessional, it sort of like makes sense. And then when you watch them in the show, like Mariner like just like saying whatever she wants all the time, it's so funny. But also like I thought it like broke a lot of like it made the show feel really really like friendly almost in a way, and I don't know if that's just because it's like, oh, we're all to Ethan Peck is hot, like haha, like if we're all just like laughing with them. But I felt like it like broke down something about Strange New Worlds that is much more sterile, and not in like necessarily a bad way, but just like much more sterile than Lower Decks, and I really liked that.
yeah,
And I wanna Mika and Hana in the chat asked me what I think of Barbie, and I just we don't have to let's not get into it because everyone has a take on Barbenheimer and it's enough. But I will say For me, Oppenheimer was a waste of my time, and I loved Barbie. I have criticisms for Barbie, obviously, but I love Barbie. Barbie, amazing. Oppenheimer, I would not see again.
Okay.
Um, and that's the Barbenheimer answer.
Yeah. Okay, there you go. Um, I'll give my review of Barbie next week. Uh, I also just going on the idea of, you know, if we have these characters interact, it's not just I think I mentioned last week Chewbacca, this is you know, Han Solo or whatever. Having having Boimler talk with Spock, who we know that he, you know, kind of idolizes, but then also being like, you got to stop with the smiling, man. It's gonna ruin things. But Spock just being, even at this age, Spock being Spock and being like, logically, whatever you say doesn't matter, and I shouldn't listen to, because obviously I really do what I'm supposed to do. And Boimler's like, oh yeah, I guess that actually makes sense. Oh, we're gonna blow up now. Yeah.
I also, that was good. I feel like, because, you know, he breaks here and there in TOS.
Yeah.
Into smiles and stuff, and I thought I liked it, and I thought that him kind of being like, haha, that's ridiculous, was funny.
And it also could have really been a chance for them to, because I've always thought that, like, especially when you get to Star Trek 6 Spock, he's been mind wiped and he's lost his brain and he's forgotten who he is like a couple times. And I think that that's the Spock that is the most integrated, like his human side and his logical side. And he even tells Valeris, like, logic, you know.
It's logic.
There's paths for everybody. It's not such a big deal. And so we can't have that now because we're 40 years or whatever before that. But I do like the fact that we aren't necessarily making a judgment on that right now. But he's saying, you know, he's not saying, oh, you're right, I'm going to have to be a robot forever, and that's why I want to be a robot, because a guy with purple hair told me to. He's just sort of saying, I defer the question, because at this point it doesn't matter to me, you know, logically. And then, of course, he will do all that stuff and all the great Spock stuff that we've seen already. There was an interesting amount of Enterprise references in this. And there's been Enterprise references like on Lower Decks before. You know, it's not like
it's don't like that anymore.
Yeah, right. Everybody's like, oh, the NX-01, so great.
They had dogs on that ship.
Yeah, you could have dogs on there, and they had phase cannons and good stuff. So I wonder if do you think that that's evidence of them floating like a trial balloon for anything, different project, or more references?
You're geared up for it. You want an Enterprise.
Well, I want it. Where's my hat? Yeah, I want it for sure. But I'm just, you know, I don't think it's ever really been verboten, because we all know that it's like the least watched show, and the people that did watch it wish they hadn't watched it. And so, is this it being welcomed sort of back into the family? Are we going to get Scott Bakula on a future episode, is what I'm asking.
On a future episode of Lower Decks, absolutely.
Yeah. So yeah, you can do it on the phone.
I feel like absolutely, yeah, we could. That's totally doable. I would not be surprised at all. As far as Enterprise, I feel like when it came out, it was so, and you know, you can, you know, I was blinking, but I wasn't there, and so Enterprise, I feel like, was so dark, turned so dark at least, and then now in Star Trek, with all of the new series, I feel like they are doing dark Star Trek stuff, and so I feel like they don't necessarily need. If all of the Star Trek we had now was sort of more like had more happy endings and like more lessons the way that so much Star Trek has had before it, then I would be like, yeah, for sure, we're gonna get a lot more Enterprise. We're gonna get they're gonna want to do a dark show.
Yeah.
But like, even comparing this episode, I mean, look at this episode, and then when we talk about the next episode, like, there's such a stark difference in content and theme and like feel.
Yeah.
That I think we can certainly look forward to a cameo from Scott Bakula on Lower Decks. That would be amazing. I would love it. But I don't really see them doing anything with Enterprise. I mean, I don't know. How do you feel?
I think, well, who knows what we'll get, you know, period, with the situation that we're in right now. Pay your writers and actors. But we're all going to just be watching these things until we die, right? Like, they're never going to let this go.
I will. I'm going to.
You know,
I will.
At some point in the future.
I'll be 90. They're going to be checking me out at the nursing home when I'm 90. It's like, all right, let's take Mimo out of the new Star Trek movie.
If
My wheelchair is gonna like hover.
if Giorgio becomes like a time traveling secret agent or something like that, with Carl and Gary Seven and Wesley Crusher, who knows? We could see anything. I hope so. I hope so in the future. I did like that little thing, which every time they come up with something that's really awesome, you're like, why wasn't that in the series the entire time? But now we can just say it was. But having like a piece of the old ship and the new ship, and I think I was speculating. I can't remember if we were doing it or if it was on the show, but I was thinking like, so how are our future characters gonna help because they will have future knowledge, but it'd be like they can't use it, and will that be what gets them through? And they did help out with a bunch of little stuff, but I did like that. And again, being specific to character and not necessarily the setting, I did like that ultimately it was the characters like just love of their world and of Star Trek that saved the day. Because honestly, I think all Starfleet officers would probably know that there's a piece of like the previous ship inside their ship. But the fact that these two nerds like went to the Starfleet Museum, instead of like going to the park or something like that, meant that like they knew, oh yeah, this is the thing that we need to get us through. Like that was another good thing, centering it on like how the characters can affect the situation that they're in. And then later, cutting the deal where it's like, oh well, we'll tell everybody that you guys discovered it, and that way they'll know that you're scientists. Like that was like, yeah, that would fit what all the characters want in this situation. And then when Pike at the end is like, they're like, you want us to come through? It's like, no, no, don't come
stay
through. Stay where you are.
Over there.
Yeah, it's great.
Although it would have been kind of fun, I think. Maybe it would have been like cheap, but it would have been fun if they were like, "Hey, what are you guys doing?" We got to see like them live action for just like a few seconds, and then Mariner could be like, "Get back in, we're going back," and push him back in. That would have been fun. But
yeah, I mean, it's not real.
Cost money.
It's not real. Yeah, I guess it's not really like. I guess it's kind of Boimler and Mariner's show, but the whole they're the big four. So
yeah.
Next time. And then seeing the animated Strange New Worlds crew at the end was fun too. You got to do that. This might be the first time we ever see somebody stop a shuttlecraft from being stolen. It's usually just, and no wonder they thought they could just steal a shuttlecraft like everybody always does it. But of course, Lon is like the best employee of the month. It's like, hey, get out of here. That's pretty much all I had to say because we definitely have to move on and talk about the next episode. So if you're ready, I'm ready.
Yeah, I mean, obviously this episode was amazing.
Yeah.
It was my dream come true, but they gave us 2 episodes in 1 week, so let's cut ourselves off.
We gotta go. We gotta go to the next one, and the next one
we gotta get down to business.
The official synopsis for Under the Cloak of War is: Captain Pike and his crew welcome a Klingon defector aboard the USS Enterprise, but his presence triggers the revelation of some shocking secrets. This was written by Davey Perez and directed by Jeff W. Bird. And there are 2 time periods in this episode as well. Flashbacks, which are set from 1875.4 to 1877.5 in the calendar year 2259. And of course, that's the present date. And then the past dates are in 2256 to 2257. No star date provided. There are 2 big guest stars in this episode. Robert Wisdom as Doc Ra. And he's a character actor that's been on a lot of stuff. I think he's usually remembered as Bunny from The Wire. And Clint Howard appears as Buck Martinez. This is Clint Howard's 5th appearance in the franchise since his appearance in the first production episode of Those Old Scientists, The Corbomite Maneuver, 56 years ago. So, I mean, we can just take a second and just go, wow, this guy's been doing Star Trek for almost 6. People talk about Jeffrey Combs. Clint Howard's been in this thing since the beginning, so that's pretty incredible. That's about it. Let's do it. What'd you think about Under the Cloak of War?
I liked it. I had a little bit of a rocky start for me personally, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
As a general rule, I don't know what date it is. And I thought that it was going to be the musical episode today.
Oh, yeah, I kind of thought that too, yeah.
And so I hit bing, and I was like, this is a really weird, like...
What are they going to sing about? This is terrible.
Yeah, I was like, really weird choice for a musical episode, and because I hadn't seen the trailer yet for the episode. And I was watching it, and I was like, Okay, so is the song gonna start now? Because
Right.
like watching everyone grapple with their PTSD, recent war,
Yeah.
veterans, and I was like, okay, so is Ortega's gonna start singing
What
in
is
the middle
this?
of dinner?
Martin Gare? That's a musical joke. Uh,
Like,
Les Mis? It was this Les Mis? Uh,
yeah.
that might have worked, but I have a feeling that that's not what we're going to get next week when the musical episode
No, I
plays.
think it'll be much sillier, which is good. But I did start it, and I was like, kind of, it made me like it's a little bit of a stressful episode. I was kind of feeling it because I really was ready for like I had just had time to watch the Lower Decks episode today, and so I was like ready for more singing and dancing, and I was like, oh, what? I thought it was good. I don't know how I feel about maybe it's just necessary to have a good balance of silly fun and really quite dark. I was gonna say that I didn't know how I felt about them sort of diverging from. I feel like there's so much like lightness and so many, especially in season 2 of Strange New Worlds, there's so much like they're having a little bit more fun.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
um and so it was a little jarring, especially after those old scientists then to go straight into this and have the episode itself be so full of so much tension,
Yeah,
and
we
I couldn't believe the ending.
kind of
So I
had
really was.
you had dessert first, and then we went right on to the Brussels
I
sprouts.
know, I was like, I kind of wish they had swapped these. Like, I really
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
feel.
yeah. But
It's like,
next
ooh.
week is going to be a chocolate parfait, though. So I'm guessing.
Well, exactly. Well, and I couldn't believe, and now, frankly, not that it not so not like I want to distinguish not liking a character and thinking they're a bad character and I don't want to see more of them, different things. But now I'm like, well, now I don't really like Mbenga. You know what I mean? I'm like,
Yeah,
no, I don't trust that guy.
yeah, yeah.
I don't trust him for 1 second.
Uh, yeah. We'll dig into his character and his choices
Yeah.
in a little bit. I wanted to point out, like, because I want to prove that I know a lot of Star Trek. I mean, I want to foster discussion. This episode reminds me a lot, obviously, visually, of the Siege of AR 558 from DS9, which is their big war episode. And it's got shades of Conscience of the King in it, in that a character is sort of confronted with this figure, this bloody figure from their past that they need to reconcile with. It also reminds me a lot of the TNG episodes, The Defector, the titular Defector, and The Wounded, which is the one where Chief O'Brien has to, get over his PTSD and his hatred of Cardassians. And also just kind of like, it just turns into kind of guess who's coming to dinner, like literally, like in the little Star Trek 6 shades in that kind of uncomfortable dinner. And then a friend of mine online was talking about, and I agree, it's a little MASH, a little 4077, maybe a
Oh.
1701 MASH unit in this. We don't get to see these war scenes very often because
Yeah.
Starfleet's not supposed to go to war. And I think that I really liked this episode as another piece. You were talking about how it's tough to be like, hey, monorail one week, and
Yeah.
then the other week it's like, and that's, I really do feel the stress that they must feel in delivering something that's both consistent and yet gives peaks and valleys in terms of drama and comedy in the course of 10 episodes. Because in TNG, you just go science mystery, Picard's really thinking about something really tragic. Lexana Troy's here, yay! And then like rinse and repeat. And so, what do you pack into 10 episodes? But I think that this was a good um, additional chapter in this kind of ongoing story that we have, in this world of these characters. Except I hated the ending, and we can talk about that in a little bit. And also, once again, I find myself disagreeing with what the episode seems to ultimately decide about their issue. In previous war episodes we've had in Star Trek, like AR 558, like Nor the Battle to the Strong and DS9, they're all DS9 episodes, the good war episodes, or the ones that show the effects of war, like The Wounded. You can call it namby-pamby, you can call it both sides in, but generally they come down on we're all victims of war. You know, things happened in war, but the war is over and we can't hold on to that. And I know that like Mbenga's choice at the end is not unarguably like a bad choice and the wrong choice, and I'm fine with him making like a bad decision. Every week I say let these characters make mistakes, but it seems like the episode has his back in terms of like when he's like confronting Ra at the end, and he's basically saying like, I'm the one who killed everybody, so I have the moral authority, and you didn't kill those people that you said you killed,
Yeah.
but you took that, you were a coward, but you've turned that into something positive. But I'm right, and you deserve to be punished. And I was like, what? How does that even in your traumatized mind? I don't even see how that's supposed to play out. And it's he makes a really bold choice at the end, and I'm all for characters making terrible choices, but usually, like on Star Trek, they make these bad choices in service of trying to do what they think is the right thing. Um, the example is
I
Cisco
was sorry, Mika in the chat. I was confused too.
confused about what happens at the end.
I was like, yeah, frankly, I was like, I can't wait to talk to Aaron about this because someone needs to explain this
Oh,
to me.
well, let's talk about it.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I wanted to
No.
address that, like,
I,
that I agree.
I was just gonna make the point that like Cisco sets off some things that lead to people being murdered
Yes.
in the pale moonlight, and he decides I'm going to be the one that takes this, and I'm going to eat this sin because we need this. And Mbenga's just like die. So the problem that I had and the confusion I think that is like the staging is bad. It's staged poorly, and I don't
It's
know.
very odd, and
I
is
don't
it
know why they
because
staged it that way.
do you think they were trying to instill in the audience some doubt as to what really
Possibly,
happened?
possibly. And they've got the whole thing with the biobed, which apparently was like something that happened before last season, like the biobed broke or something like that. And so I don't know if that's like a metaphor for like this thing that he can't fix, you know, something that he
Yeah,
can't
well, I was gonna
repair.
talk to you because I was like, is it something to do with which now that I'm thinking about this doesn't make any sense. But I was like, because they readdressed having somebody's is somebody in the pattern buffer. What happened
Oh,
to his daughter?
she went off with the Boltzmann brain. She went off to Fairy
Right.
Tale Land. Yeah. But
So that
how is
them
he like
readdressing keeping people in the pattern buffer and then also the biobed
yeah,
breaking.
it was weirdly
It
rushed.
did that happen last season?
Yeah. Yeah.
The biobed broke
Around
last
this
season?
Oh yeah, there was when the Gorn got on board, or when Hemmer died, like the biobed broke or something. I don't know if they showed it. I just saw it on Memory Alpha because I didn't remember the moment, but um, it's supposed to be a reference to what happened then. Um, but like it felt so rushed and so
Is it? Do you think that he knew he was going to kill him the whole time, so he broke the biobed on purpose, so that if he didn't quite kill him, that if he tried to help him, the biobed was broken, he couldn't fix him? Is that anything? Is that something?
that's that's diabolical if that's true. Um, no, I just think that like both episodes were like sub 50 minutes, which I'm happy about. But I'm like, but I would have gone to 55 if we would have had like, because he's dead. He died somehow, and then like, do they get rid of his body or like you know what?
I know. I was like, I'm sorry.
Also,
Now there's a body in sick bay.
and then Pike comes in and he's like, oh, you're a murderer, but I think you're probably gonna be okay. Like,
Well, I know. I was like, are we not gonna
yeah, it's
like?
not
Because
addressed
that's
at all.
after it happened. I was like, wow, that's crazy. They're kicking Mbenga off the ship. That's wild.
But they're not. He's just gonna,
Exactly.
yeah. So, and the funny thing is like, they're not trying to spare us anything because like we see like bloody knives with hair stuck to them, people getting their throats slit. It's not like they're trying to spare the audience from something. It did feel like they were concealing something because there was going to be some kind of switcheroo or something, and we don't.
Didn't even put him in the brig.
Yeah, we don't know. I mean, there's two more episodes. I kind of doubt they're going to come back, but maybe they're leaving themselves open. But I don't think so, and here's why. I don't think that, I don't know if it's the writer or the director or time pressure or whatever, but I don't, there's a couple moments that aren't sold I think, well enough in the episode. They set this whole thing up about, first of all, Heart Boy. The second Heart Boy comes back out, and he's like, I don't know, man. I'm like, Heart Boy's dead. You hear that ticking? Heart Boy's going to die. He's going to go back out. He's going to get killed. And he comes back, and they just show him. I mean, they show him, but it isn't a moment like, that's the moment where Mbenga's like, where's my green juice? Let's do this. That's kind of lost in the thing. There's another moment where they save the guy's body in the thing, and you think like, oh, that's they're saving this hope. And then later they just go.
Also, where Mbenga got the idea to put his kid in the pattern buffer.
Yeah. But like, then he just erases him. But it's not. He just does it. He does it casually, but also the show doesn't make a big deal out of it. And I don't think that you need to like
the big red button.
Right. You don't have to drill into the audience's head.
Oppenheimer.
But you have to. Yes. But you have to indicate to the audience that it's like, this is an important moment. Like, that's where he's kind of giving up on his hope of, we're seeing this happen by degrees. We lose Heart Boy. We lose this guy. This other thing happens. And the story doesn't, like, Jonathan Frakes would have made a meal out of those moments. And it's just like, yeah, things happen and then he kills everybody. And so so I think that their staging of it was, and maybe there was something on set, there was a reason that they needed to sort of stage it in this sort of behind this window or whatever. Or they had to give Chapel plausible deniability. They're saying Mbenga is
maybe you're right. Maybe it's that they didn't
we don't
want
want
it to
Chapel.
seem like Chapel was lying for him, but I was like, Chapel's lying.
Yeah.
Because she didn't see the whole thing.
Right. She is lying, yeah. And also, like, there's there's Google cams everywhere, right? They can just like rewind stuff and just, play back.
Maybe they think it's unethical in the future, though.
I can see that, but when they need to have it, they'll have it. They recreated an entire Rashomon holodeck for Riker the time that he supposedly killed that guy. So yeah, do we chat? Did we talk about that enough, or do you have any more questions? Let us know.
I'm just glad that everybody else was confused because I was like, I'm not really clear what's happening, and I don't understand why the biobed's broken, and I do like a flawed character. The Mbenga ending to this episode, I was very like, what? Because what am I supposed to think now about him and his razor sharp cheekbones? You know what I mean?
Yeah. And he's like kind of like secretly jacked. He's kind of cut too. See him in the sonic shower.
Scary. Spooky. Do you think he'll have like a lament next episode in Subspace Rhapsody?
Everybody gets to do like a kick number, but he's like the one going like,
and he's like in the dark.
I killed Bunny from the wire.
Like, stars.
I took him down to Hamster Town. Yeah.
And Pike going on there and being like, that's so funny that somebody died in here, because if you saw that fight, you'd tell me, right? Yeah. And that's so silly.
Pike just comes in. That was nuts. Wow.
Damn, that was crazy. But like, I know that you would talk to me if you killed that man, right? You would tell me if you murdered the Klingon ambassador on my ship. Unreal.
Yeah, maybe Pike gives people too much leverage, because there's a couple times in the episode, like that point at the dinner where Ortegas is like, yeah, I'm gonna Klingon mock you, and she leaves, and then Chapel leaves, and the guy keeps talking, and Mbenga's like, and Pike's like,
yeah,
do you want to go?
Like, wow, this guy looks like he could really kill a man right now.
Are you okay?
He's got the look in his eye.
Go check on the canapes.
Follow Ortegas.
Yeah.
Who could have guessed that Starfleet ordering me to put war veterans who were on the same planet as Ambassador Ra, and have a little dinner party would go wrong?
I love the theme of war. They say Jagal changed a lot of us, and I love their resentment, not only over this guy who took lives on their side in the war, but also they're mad because it's like, why does he get to be positively changed and we are stuck with PTSD and suffering?
Oh, I didn't even think about that angle.
And it's like a resentment. God. Why is he happy, whether or not it's real or not. They
Yeah.
resent that
Chapel saying he won't shut up about how much peace he's created or
he's made
whatever.
so much effing peace.
Spock was like, I can change that.
Let me go bore everyone to save my girlfriend. Yeah. Um, yeah. So it's like the whole thing. Like I would, the whole. It was like a 90-yard kick return where the runner explodes at the 1 yard line. Like I did not understand, and I did not like the ending at all. But everything else I thought was really good. I thought a lot of the conversations were really good. I love the speech that most of the speech that Mbenga gives to Heart Boy about how you wanted to explore, we're out here fighting. I'm a
Mm,
doctor, I'm out here, but I became a doctor to learn to heal. And the subtext that I got is like, war is where the hurt people are. Like, that's what I'm
yeah,
doing right now. What I didn't like about
yeah,
the speech is that it ends in him saying, that's Starfleet, we are Starfleet. But
yeah.
I didn't like how it depersonalizes war, because war just becomes like something that has affected all of us, and it's not necessarily about the powers that have put us into motion and that we are
I
the
think
pawns.
also,
And I think that TOS in its war stories does that very well. I think DS9 has done that very well. And this is just becomes more about, well, I got to kill this raw guy, and I'm the killer, you're the killer, and I don't know. I didn't think that was quite so interesting. Sorry, go ahead.
no, I don't know if this is a feasible idea. You can tell me. I was going to say that I think maybe in America that our idea of war has kind of changed since the like Iraq war because it went on for so long and it just became sort of like a constant
Yeah.
that just that's what when you were talking that's what that reminded me of. I was like, maybe it's just kind of a product of how our culture has changed since then.
It's a product of, and no, I want to make sure that I acknowledge the men and women that serve and continue to serve today. But in TOS and even kind of still in TNG, a lot of those guys went to war, or their dads, went to war and told them all about it, and so they had a very personal relationship to it, and a lot of their interactions, those brief fleeting moments, those years of war, you are left with something to think about for the rest of
Yeah.
your life. And so it was writing these characters who are like, I still just I can't think clearly about the things that happened and the things that I did and that were done to me. I think that you see those in those stories, and I think it's good. I can say this as an American, I guess. I think it's good that there's less war, and I guess war doesn't touch us. It touches people around the world. Um, but it's probably harder to write about that, or at least it's harder to write in a more personal way about it. Um, but hey, look, I'd love for our war stories to suck for the rest of time as long as there's no more war. In the chat, Mika and Hana says, like Chapel and the Doctor, even though they served together, they wouldn't have had the same experience. Yeah, that's true. And also, she says Kira in DS9 is written really well. Yeah, I think that's true. And Kira is somebody. We got a former terrorist to write Kira, and it's really personal. No, but I mean, like, I like the fact that uh, that Kira is somebody who is trying to not be a warrior. Still, her first response is to lash out, and what we need is like
I Let me ask you
a
a
peace
question.
person now. Yeah.
I was attending a panel at Shore Leave a couple weeks ago.
First of all, congrats.
Thank you. In which the air conditioning wasn't working, first of all,
Yeah.
in most of the hotel all weekend. Um,
Sad I missed that.
you should really, this was really a good year to skip. I'll be real with you. I'll be honest to you, you won. And somebody, it was a Deep Space Nine panel, and they were addressing, they just said something, somebody said something about Kira, and somebody else said, she's such an interesting character because she is, she was a terrorist. And this created some tension in the audience, in which an audience member said, no, she wasn't. And somebody else in the audience said, she was. And the woman said, yes, no, or said, no, she was, like, again, like, and then the woman got up and I think left the panel. And I
huh.
was like, first of all, extreme reaction
Yeah.
to get up, shout, not shout, but firmly state, and then get up and leave. Um, Thoughts?
I think that that word is charged, and it is charged with different polarities, decade by decade. Would she prefer freedom fighter? What would she prefer? Guerrilla
She
fighter?
is it just that she was a terror, but she was on
I mean,
the right side?
she calls herself a terrorist on the
Yeah,
show.
it's like, is it that? Because I was sitting there and I was like, is that lady freaking out because?
Are the Wolverines and Red Dawn terrorists, or are they freedom
Yeah,
fighters?
it's like she was like she was a terrorist just because she was on, what I think is the right side, what we all think is the right side, what was the right side in Star Trek. Doesn't mean that she wasn't a terrorist. Like, I was like, whew.
Yeah. And, to call somebody a terrorist, and I'm not like advocating for terrorists or terror as a concept, but to call.
Let's start advocating for terror.
But you heard it here. But using that word terrorist, it's used by another side to dehumanize another group, and to definitely take the focus away from what it is that they're fighting for or trying to say. And so, yeah, like big Kira fan, I guess, but doesn't understand the character of Kira at all. Too bad. What else? So, I don't know. I don't mean to like bag on the director, but I think that it could have been directed with a little more focus towards, what was happening in the script a little bit. Also,
Definitely.
I didn't notice in Those Old Scientists, noticed in this one, the big scene where Ra is talking to Mbenga, and we don't know it yet, but Mbenga is getting him into his trap. He's like, "Oh, all your guys, who fought the hardest? Who was the hardest fighter?" Crazy shaky cam going all over the place. It's like, this is like an intense scene. Like these two.
I know. I was watching. I was like, can we? I was a little bit like I was, and again, I was like, I am maybe I didn't have the best day, and then I watched Lower Decks, the thing, and I was like, yay! And then I was like, and something else something silly special for me that Paramount gave to me this week, and then I was like, oh. But I was I was just a bit tense. And then I felt like that tension, a tense episode is fine. That's good. I think a lot of the time I talk about Star Trek and I'm like, and I really love all the positive moments and I love when they're silly. And that's great. Obviously, dark episodes are great as well. But by the end of the episode, I was kind of like, ooh, I feel weird and I'm confused.
Yeah. There was also a couple really good character moments that I don't even know if they saw them as character moments. I feel like, oh boy, here he goes again, old Trek versus new Trek. I feel like on old Trek, you'd have like a conference room scene, and then people leave, but like two people stay behind, and part of it is to add a little twist to like, we've got to put the thing in the thing. And then everybody leaves, and Picard's like, we have to put the thing in the thing, but we can only put it in clockwise instead of counterclockwise. And then whatever character that is will reply in a way that reaffirms their character. Like Riker will be like, well, that shouldn't be tough. Or Geordi will be like, well, maybe we have to do this. And like, that's how we get extra little bits and bobs to stick to what the characters are like. And like in New Trek, it's more like, we've got these three people for this scene. So in this scene, we will talk about this, but then they'll all go around and kind of say their thing. And this episode was great because there was a lot of like little throwaway bits, especially for Spock, that were like, oh, that kind of tells us more about Spock, and this isn't necessarily a scene that's super important to moving the story forward. Like I liked when they left the dinner, and this is like the little extra scene, and she's like, logically you understand what PTSD is, but you have to feel it. And you don't understand how I feel. And he's like, oh, I understand. You need a Spock break. Well, very well, I shall go. And he leaves, and it's like, is his pride wounded? Or he doesn't really think that him not being there is going to help. I think that he's kind of like,
he was being kind of a simp.
Yeah, right.
And a little bit stupid, where he was like, doesn't want me around. I thought
he was being like the Vulcan version of an asshole, because he was kind of like, oh, my help's not helpful. Well, I guess I help if I'm not here.
That's actually so
gonna
funny.
take a little Spock break.
He was like,
Okay.
"Oh yeah, then I'll leave."
Yeah.
Oh my god, that's so funny because maybe I I do maybe it's me that's the simp because I was like, Chapel's being a little hard on Spock.
Also,
Like
like
when he
when you're trying to, so you've got this new relationship that you've like finally like made happen with this like hot Vulcan guy, but you're also thinking, does he want to watch like while you were sleeping? Do you know what I mean? Like she's got to have like, what does he want to do? I mean, it's great when we're like, having sex, but like, what do we do in the meantime? Do I tell him about like this or that? And now she's having this emotional thing where she both kind of needs somebody, but also like needs distance as well. And I can see her internalizing a lot of that because she's like, I don't want to put this on Vulcan guy because he's going to be
Mhm.
like, I don't know what to do with that, So it's even worse for her. So I don't know. It's really
I felt
great.
like
I'm
he
so
was
glad
being
that
I
they
felt like
finally made them a couple, at least for now. It's just like they could finally pay that off. So anyway, yeah, go
yeah.
ahead.
I was watching it and I was like, oh, I feel like he is doing a good job of trying to understand and help because he was like,
Yeah,
when
yeah,
he said the thing about statistics and she snapped at him, like obviously it was a great scene, it was a good scene,
right.
but it's also like, well, he's trying to say, I know that the war was really bad
Yeah,
on J- Jagal.
yeah. But it also
He's
like the way it's so it's reduced.
robotic,
Yeah, and it's reducing
like a computer. Yeah,
the
yeah.
the deep emotions that she feels to like some
Oh, for
numbers.
sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which is not what he meant, but it's that's
No.
how it comes across. So,
Yeah.
all right, spin off. Just it's Chapel and Spock. Chapel and Spock. Yeah.
Chapel and Spock. Oh my God, read. Oh my God, my dad has a book or a short story that's about Chapel and Spock, and now I don't remember what it is.
A short story.
Maybe I'm totally blanking now,
Uh oh.
which is so embarrassing.
That's bad.
I'm
That's
googling
bad for
my own
you.
father. This is bad. Don't tell him. He's not caught up on the podcast. I bet he won't watch this. I bet he'll skip it and he'll never know. It's a novella, first of all. So my confusion a little warranted because
Okay.
it's not a novel
All
or
right.
a short story. It's an
You're in the
e-novella.
middle.
It is called The More Things Change.
Okay.
It is set 6 months after the events of Star Trek: The Motion Picture, in
Yeah.
which Chapel and Spock save the life of an ailing Audra Dax.
Okay. All right.
Anyways, so Spock and Chapel, there we go.
Yeah.
Plug successful.
Do you think that let's not yeah, that'll make up for it. Let's not rewrite the whole episode, but do you think that it would have been better if Pike had come in at the end and been like, all right, so I don't think there might be an inquiry, but I think that you're probably okay. Is the door locked? What the hell were you doing? And he just like went off on him like this. And I came to you like 3 times because in the script he comes for the parsley and he talks to him later, and it seems like they're setting up a thing in a.
Yeah, I wish. Yeah, and I thought that's what was going to happen. I thought he was going to say,
I gave you every chance. I told you about the dinner.
I know
said
that you did this. I thought he was going to say, I know that you did this.
That would be interesting.
And I thought that he was going to say, I've already reported to Starfleet Command. I can't believe you break my trust like this. I had no choice. You know what I mean?
Yeah, or even just like, that would be something that you just like hip pocket and just say, I know you did this, and for X and X reason, we're going to go into the something expanse. I can't report this now, but you're on notice or something like that.
Yeah.
Mika Honda says in the chat, I saw Pike reading a pad about the Doctor. Okay, he Googled him.
He just like me and my dad. Sometimes you gotta Google your extremely close friends and family.
What do I know about
this guy? There's just no way around it. Then there's just no way around it.
He's like, why did you do this? And he's like, well, I did it because what? Sorry, what? Well, I did it because I thought we were going to find out what happened to his voice, but that's just how he talks. So, okay. Anything else to say about the episode? I think that we covered things pretty good. Two very different episodes. I think two very strong episodes. A lot to talk about. And so things look up, at least for Strange New Worlds, I think. I think that's it for our show this week. So thanks for joining us, listeners. And if you like what you hear, you can follow us on Facebook and Twitter at EISTPOD for updates and to get notified when our new episodes are released. Tweet to us on the show by using the hashtag Discoverage, or you can email us at EISTPOD@gmail.com and drop us a line. And while you're on the internet, why not head to your listening platform of choice and subscribe to our show feed, give us a rating and a review. It really does help us out. And if you want to help the show grow, stop by our Patreon page at patreon.com/EISTPOD. And as always, if you like the show, tell a friend and share it online. Discoverage will return next week on August 3rd at 8 p.m. for the 9th episode of Strange New Worlds' second season, an episode entitled Subspace Rhapsody. It's the musical episode. That's all we know so far. I think it did say that Captain Girlfriend will be back. That's what it said on the cast list.
Captain Girlfriend.
Other than that, whether there'll be some kind of like musical alien who's a famous guest star, I don't know these things. But we will be here next Thursday to cover it. We'll be going live once again at 8 p.m. Central, so join us then. Follow us on Twitter or Facebook at EISTPOD to get notified when we're live and broadcasting. And if you haven't already, subscribe to us here on Twitch. Hit the heart, hit the bell icon so you get notified when we are live and broadcasting. Ella, thanks as always for joining me to talk about Star Trek Strange New Worlds and remind people where they can find you online.
Thank you. I'm at Gondor Gold on every social media site. And, you know, my if you want to go to my dad's website that hasn't changed since 2002, you can, that is scott-pearson.com, and you can order things like The More Things Change.
Yes.
An e-novella about Spock and Chapel set 6 months after Star Trek The Motion Picture.
Spock novella. Yes. Check that out. I'm at KA1IBAN on X.
I don't even want to talk about that.
Check out all my exes.
What a clown.
All my exes live in Texas. You can also find all the shows on the Just Enough Trope Network at justenoughtrope.com. And that is it for us this week. Thanks for listening. We're signing off. This is Aaron for Ella saying, live long and prosper.